Hey BookTube, it's Jackie. How's it going? If you are new to me, it's the first time you're seeing my face. Hello, what's up? My name's Jackie. I sit on my floor and I talk about books. So I hope that's why you're here, because that's what's gonna be happening today. If you're not new to me, thank you for always tuning in and the continued support. Really do appreciate it. So for today, I have another installment, my 7th installment in my Birthstone recommendation series, where I recommend books based off of the properties and the symbolism, the myths and lores of our month's birthstones. So if this sounds interesting to you and you'd like to find some recommendations based off of the birthstone for the month of July, which happens to be this bad boy, the Ruby, grab yourself a drink, have yourself a seat, and let's get talking some books. Okay, yes. Like I said, this is the 7th installment in this series, so I will have the entire playlist of all the previous installments up here in the corner. You can go check it out. I have one for every single month of the year so far, and there's some fun ones in there, so please go check that out if you're interested. This will be geared just like all my previous videos in this series, where I break down based off of name, color, creation, where you can find myths and lore and all that other jazz, and I will be recommending books off of those descriptions and those properties. So let's just dive right in. The first thing I have is that the fact that July has only one birthstone. It's one of the few months that only has the one, and it is just the Ruby. Now, the Ruby is the second hardest stone after the Diamond. And Diamond being April's birthstone, I recommended my hardest read I've ever had. So I thought it only fitting for the second hardest gemstone, to recommend the second hardest read I've ever read. And that is Tim O'Brien's The Things They Carried. I read this for a intro to literature course in my early years of college, freshman, sophomore year of college. And the reason why this was so difficult for me is because I hated this book. I hated it. Straight up fucking hated this book. But by the end of that class and the end of reading this book, I was the only one that liked this book. Everybody else hated it because of the ending. What this book is a collection of short stories about individuals during the Vietnam War and the items they carried, whether it was military gear, whether it was love letters from home, whether it was illustrated Bibles and whatnot. But essentially, it was all these stories about these random items that were carried and brought back when the war was over, except there's a twist. And a lot of people didn't like the twist because it took them for a loop. But because I didn't like this book in the beginning and I ended up loving it by the end because of that twist, I'm recommending it, because this is one of the few books that really helped cement my love of history. This is one of the books that taught me that history is a story. And that's what really lives on and carries on. Yes, we have the artifact and the item that was carried, but it means nothing without the story to go with it. And that's what this book taught me. And it was one of the hardest lessons I ever had to learn and accept about history, but it was one of the most promising, the most fulfilling, one of the most happiest memories I have when I finally got this book. So is it difficult to read? Straightforward? No, but the message is really hard to accept. It's really hard to accept that all the materialistic things that we have in our lives mean absolutely nothing after we die. They only matter if someone carries the story and repeats it and continues to tell it. That's what really matters. And it's a hard lesson. It's a hard pill to swallow. It really is. But damn if this is not a fun one. I really highly, highly recommend this one. This is one of the books that defines the Jackie that you know. So if you pick this up, please let me know. And this is also one of my only signed books that I own. I actually did not get to meet him, but I had a friend go to a book signing of Tim O'Brien, and he took my copy with him. So it's actually signed to me. So this holds also a very special place in my heart as well, because this is one of my stories. It's one of mine. All right. So let's get into the name of the Ruby, okay? So the name comes from the Latin word ruber, which means red. Shocker. Shocking, right? In Sanskrit, and I hope I pronounce this wrong. If I am not, I fucking apologize. I don't read Sanskrit, okay? I don't. Let's just be honest. But it's called the Ratanaraja. It's right here. Here you go. It's right there. But what that means is the king of precious stones. And so I thought a great recommendation for this would be my best book of 2022. and that is none other than J. Kristoff's Empire of the Vampire. I have a full book review for this. I will link it here in the corner. This thing is 5 stars. This thing put vampires back on the fucking map for me. I did not shut up about this book the entirety of 2022. And the sequel just got announced. It'll be dropping in March of 2024. I am fucking pumped, people. I am pumped. Yes. Yes. I'm so excited. But what is this book about? This is the story of Gabriel de Leon, the last and only Silver Saint still around. The Silver Saint is an order that was designed to basically protect the world from the creatures of the night. Except in this world, the sun has failed and the creatures of the night are thriving and winning the battle. And as I said, he's the last Silver Saint, and this is his story. But this is just the beginning. This is told in an interview style, very reminiscent of Anne Rice's Interview with the Vampire. But oh my God, the cast of characters, the things they fucking say. I mean, there's literally a character in here that his favorite phrase is "fuck my face." Like, that's literally what he says all the time. And I'm just like, I fucking love you. I love you to the moon and back. And the moon is always showing in this world. It's fucking fantastic. This thing has spice. This thing has action. This thing has intensity. This thing has drama. This thing has horror. This thing has fear. This thing has battle. It has blood. It is sarcastic. It is mean. It is angsty. It is poetry and fucking motion. And there's gay fucking vampires in it on top of it. Where could you go wrong with this book? You can't. You can't. That's why. You can't go wrong with this. Highly recommend this. Book of the year for me, 2022, won the first ever First Lady Award for Book of the Year. So, yay. Highly recommend this one. Definitely go check this one out. The next thing about rubies is the color. We all know the ruby color. It is this beautiful red. This is the traditional color that you see. And it gets this red coloring from the presence of the trace element chromium. The depth of the red, the darkness of the red depends on how much chromium is actually in the stone. And the stones can range from multiple shades, from an orangey red to pink to purple to this deep red that you see here, all the way to a very light rose red almost. And the most valuable ruby color is known as pigeon blood. It's a bright red stone with a tint of purple. Now, I usually try to dress appropriately for these videos, but I did not have a red top that I haven't already worn for a Birthstone video. So I decided to rock my ruby necklace here. No, these aren't real. I'm not that rich, guys. I am not. I wish I was. But, so this is the pigeon blood kind of color that you're looking for. It's very reminiscent of almost a garnet color, that bright red with that deep blood tone in the center. And that is one of the most rare and most valuable of the rubies. So, when I was picking a book for this, rubies look like blood, okay? They look like blood. And valuable. They're valuable. So I was trying to think of valuable blood. Those are the words that came in my head. And the only thing that came to my mind, valuable blood, was Christ. I'm Catholic, I'm Roman Catholic, so you know the blood of Christ. Kind of a prevalent thing in my faith. And when I was trying to think of a book, I didn't want to recommend a book about Jesus because I just didn't. But one that had a little darkness, something religious but with dark. And that's when I fell upon this bad boy, The Da Vinci Code by Dan Brown. This swept the nation when I was in high school. This book was not allowed in my high school library. I went to a Catholic school, by the way. Yeah. We had a all reading day and one teacher read it and our principal promptly took it out of the library afterwards when he found out what it was about. And what it's about is we follow Robert Langdon. He's a professor of, I believe, like symbology, like a symbolic professor. He studies symbols and hieroglyphs and things of that nature. And he's like the Indiana Jones of church history, but like legit church history, not just stumbling upon church history. Like, that's his forte, okay? And he is called to help solve a murder at the Louvre in Paris. And he is brought there to help identify some symbols that were on the corpse. But what he doesn't realize is that he's actually a suspect in this murder. And after he is informed of this by our other character, Sophie Neveu, who is a French cryptologist, they are set on a trek of adventure that is full of puzzles, history, that is either going to preserve the church as we know it or unveil the dark con of man, which is a line from the book. This thing is fucking fire. I had so much fun with this one. It is definitely one of those that you will get sucked into and not let go. This is the only Dan Brown book I have ever read. I do have 3 other works of his, but I just haven't gotten around to reading them. But I loved this. This was one sitting for me. One sitting. After I heard the excerpt in school, I promptly went home, told my mom to take me to Barnes & Noble, and I bought this book. And I did not put it down until I finished it. I read it through the night, could not put it down. And I love the movie. It's one of my favorite movies to watch. So definitely one to check out. If you have not read this one, please go check it out. It's a lot of fun. It really is. Where can you find rubies? Some locations, people, okay? Let's get some geographics going on here. So you can find rubies in Burma, or Myanmar is what it's called now, I believe. And it actually produces the majority of the world's rubies and quote unquote the finest in the world at this point. Other locations of the world that produce rubies include Sri Lanka, Thailand, Mozambique, and a very small area of the United States. Rubies are one of the rarest gemstones on the face of the planet. And the larger the carats, the more rare. So for this, I had to recommend a rare book, a book that is kind of hard to come by. And that is M. Gira's The Consumer. And I hope I pronounced his name right. I've pronounced it wrong for years. So if I pronounce it wrong again, I'm sorry. I just apparently I can't say his name right, but it's M. Gira, The Consumer. M. Gira is the lead singer of a band called Swans. And they have a very, very unique sound. And I'm not the biggest fan of their music. There are some pieces that I like, I'll just be honest. But I am more a fan of this book. And I do have a full book review on it over here in the corner. It'll be linked up here. I purposely picked this book up because of how gory it was. I was told that you had to have a steel stomach to read this book because it is so depraved, so dark, so twisted, so gory, so just fucking whacked out acid trip, crazy ass shit that shouldn't ever exist, but it does. And so I heard that, and of course Jackie has to sign the fuck up for that because that's got Jackie written the fuck all over it. And I was not wrong. I was not lied to. Every single one of those reviews was right when I read about this book. This thing knocked me off my socks. What it is a collection of short stories, vignettes, and prose written by M. Gira. And it doesn't really convey a overarching story, but rather small, minute little pieces of information that are strategically placed among the depraved and the dark and the gross and the grotesque and the twisted. And for someone who wants to try their hand at this, you will find some amazing pieces in it. But be warned, it is not for the faint of heart, and it is not for everybody. If you do not do gore, don't read this book. If you do not do depraved and dark and twisted, don't read this book. If you do any quote unquote traditionally taboo sexual triggers, and I'm not just talking like BDSM, I'm talking like scat, blood play, things of that nature, really dark and deep underground shit, don't read this book. But if you are cool with all that stuff, if it doesn't faze you and you want to find some really interesting philosophical ideas and ideologies in a book completely surrounded around grotesque and ugly because you find the beauty in something like that, you are not going to want to miss this. However, this book is no longer in publication. The only way I got a hold of it is I had to go through interlibrary loan, sign like 20 fucking release waivers, because to find a copy of this book, the cheapest I have found it is $150. The most I have found it is almost $800. So it is a rare find, but if you are a book collector or you are a fan of M. Gira yourself, go pick this up and check it out. It's fantastic. And again, I have a full book review back in the day when I first started this channel. So don't judge me on it, okay, guys? Don't judge me. But I will link it in the down box below, and it's in the corner earlier. Now, you know where you can find rubies. Now, how are they made? Rubies, like many other gemstones, are created well below the Earth's surface. Many gemstones are, and they're created by extreme heat and pressure. Oxygen and aluminum atoms, when they're compressed, they create corundum, and the presence of chromium will give the gem its red appearance. So it is the base component is corundum of this gemstone. So when I was thinking of a book to recommend based off where it was created, it's deep in the earth. Heat, pressure, a lot of gemstones are created like that. So I decided to pick a book that was centered under the earth. Not as far deep as rubies, but definitely deep enough. And some of the themes in the book that I'm about to recommend are very heavy in pressure and symbolic of some serious things that happened in our past that definitely forged our world and society as they are today. But they are displayed through some furry friends. And that is Richard Adams' Watership Down. This is the story of a Warren that is on its trek to find a more peaceful promised land, because their original land set in the English Downs has been corrupted by farmers and pesticides, and they are on the run to find their promised land. And they encounter a cast of characters, some positive, some negative, and you also have the hierarchy system of a society within this book. I read this book for the first time when I was in the 6th grade. It was actually read, we were all reading it in class, and I lost my fucking shit. Not while reading the book. When we saw the animated feature of this book, lost my shit. This is taught alongside the Holocaust a lot. So if you are into Holocaust literature and you like to read about it, but you don't actually just want Holocaust, you want something symbolic of it, this is very similar to it. A lot of schools teach this in tandem with Holocaust literature, especially for littler kids, to kind of wrap their mind around some of the atrocities that happened during the Holocaust, except it's done with bunnies. And Netflix did make a really wonderfully done miniseries starring, oh, his name slips my mind. I'll put a picture of him right here. This guy. This guy. Fantastic actor. He's one of the voices of the main characters. Fantastic miniseries. So if you've not watched that miniseries, you should go watch it. It's very, very close to the book, and it's definitely close to the canon. So if you are a canon lover and you like to stick close to it, it does a really good job. But if not, definitely pick this book up. It is I read it in junior high, so I would say it's middle grade, very like preteen almost. But an adult can have just as much fun with it because there's a lot of symbolism in this book. And I did read it again as I got older, and I realized that I missed a lot when I was a little kid. So, excuse me, I have got like the fucking hiccups out of nowhere. It's dumb. Anyway, Watership Down, bunnies, rock on, yes. Some myths and folklore about the ruby. So, the ruby is red, and because it's red, it has become an overarching symbol of love. So I had to pick one of my favorite love stories, because why? It's my favorite book. I love this book. I will preach this book and recommend this book to the day I fucking die. Because why? It's fucking Diana Gabaldon's Outlander, okay? Jamie Fraser and Claire Randall. I recommend this damn near for almost every single Birthstone. I know for you diehards that have watched these back to back, you've seen this a lot. But this is literally my favorite book for a reason, because it has everything. Everything, and the romance and the commitment that Jamie and Claire share together remind me so much of the ruby and what it stands for in today's society. I love this book. This is Claire Randall's story, who falls back into time, she's English, during World War II. She's a nurse, and she falls back into time through some stones into 1743, where she encounters Jamie. She being English and Jamie being Scottish, they are fighting this during a Scottish uprising, and England is not really their friends, but they find out that she's on the run from Black Jack Randall, who happens to be her husband back in her own times, great grandfather, I think there's 3 greats in there. There might be 4. But nobody knows this about her. They just think she's an odd bird. And to protect her, they marry her off to Jamie. And Jamie wholeheartedly, blind, trusts this woman, loves her for all of her faults, for all of her benefits. And they're just so, it's fucking Jamie Fraser, okay? He's the king of men for reasons, and he's amazing, and I love him, and I will always love him, and I will always recommend this book. It's phenomenal. It also comes with a fucking kick-ass series. As you can see right here, here's the current series right now. Definitely a time commitment. This is one of the smaller ones of the series, but it is worth every single word. Also, there are some triggers in here. We do have some non-con scenes. We have some dark stuff in here, but we have some beautifully done history. We have some beautifully done romancing. We have some beautifully done love scenes as well, but there is some darkness because there was darkness back then, and it was just, oh, every single scene is exquisitely written. Diana Dabagon, this is perfection. I love it. I love it. It's a favorite book. Another little bit of folklore about the ruby is that in early cultures, they treasured this gem, believing that it held the power to life due to its color association with blood. It has also been thought to remedy bleeding and inflammation and increase body warmth if you hold these stones to you. So based off of this, there was only one book that I thought was dripping in enough blood that I haven't recommended yet, that I thought would be fitting for this. And this is Emily Duncan's Wicked Saints. This book didn't live up to what I wanted, but this is a YA fantasy series, but it did serve its purpose. And if you like crazy, gory, bloody stories, well, it's right here for you. Because in this book, we follow Nadia, who hears God's whisper. We also follow a prince who's surrounded by suitors and assassins, and then a monster with a smile that cuts like a knife. That is definitely read from the dust jacket in here. And they encounter each other during a war between sinners and saints and monks and blood and magic. And there's a fucking twist at the end of this book. This is the first installment to a trilogy. The Something Dark and Something Holy series. That's the name of the series. This is the first installment to it. There's a twist that just throws you for a loop, and all I picture is Carrie from Carrie in the prom scene where the blood drips on her. It's fucking nuts. There's so much blood in this. So much. If you don't like blood, don't read this book. But if you like blood and you like it incorporating your magic systems, you like incorporating your sex and your love and your romance, and you want to share all that stuff, then pick this fucking thing up. It's great. It is YA, so there's a lot of angst and not a lot of sex. But there is some steamy buildup, and I have not continued the rest of the series yet, but I do plan on it eventually. But like I said, I put this up on a pretty high pedestal for myself, and it just kind of let me down a little bit. But it is YA, and I think if it would have been written in adult nature, it would have been far better. But it does hold its own. It does hold its own. So check it out if you think it's interesting, and let me know what you thought. Some legends associate rubies with the inextinguishable flame that could shine through clothing and hold the ability to boil water. As soon as I read this, there was one book series that immediately came to mind, and you're not going to change my mind on it. And that is Sarah J. Maas's Throne of Glass. In the beginning, we follow Selena Sardathian, an assassin. In this installment, she is entering a contest to become the, what do they call her? The King's Champion. To become the King's Champion, and she's an assassin. But there is so much more to the story. And in a 6-book, 7-book series, we encounter Selena Sardathian as she grows, matures, and finds out all the secrets about her, and that she's a flame that cannot be extinguished herself. And it's fucking fire. It is fire. I loved this series. I did not read this series when it originally came out. I read this for the SJM Readathon last year that was hosted by Jen of the Book Refuge. That's how I got introduced to these books. And I'll be damned. Oh my God, I fell in love, had my heart ripped out, had it stomped on, had it shoved back into my chest so many times. I lost fucking count, guys. But apparently there's news. This series not done yet. It just dropped a little while ago, so I'm just like, what? I don't exactly know what the statement was, but I was told somewhere that Sarah J. Maas is thinking about revisiting, and I'm like, ah, yes, please. Yes, I will be there. Love this, love this. Definitely need to go check this out. If you never read a Sarah J. Maas book, you need to check this out. This is YA. So you do have that kind of YA slow burn, very slow burn. And we do have a love triangle that does get resolved, and then it grows exponentially to being fucking amazing. So, Rowan. That's all I gotta say. Yes, Daddy, I will have another. Thank you. All right, so the next recommendation I have is based off of a little fact about one particular ruby. The largest ruby is the 125 West ruby. It's unpolished and a rough cut gem weighing more than 18,000 carats. And one segment of this ruby was actually carved to resemble the Liberty Bell that weighs 8,500 carats. Or there's another that's the second largest ruby. I never quite figured out the connection to it. But when I read that a ruby was carved into the Liberty Bell, I was like, okay, I know exactly where I'm going with this. So let me just take you down a journey, okay? Let me just take you a little history lesson. The Liberty Bell was originally first made in 1752 for the Pennsylvania State House, known as Independence Hall, where the Declaration of Independence was written, signed, and, Treason Day. Yes. We were all signing our death warrants that day, if things went bad. But anyway, the bell was cast in London, England, and shipped to Pennsylvania. And soon after it arrived, it cracked. And in 1753, a new bell was cast from some of the same metal from the original bell by John Pass and John Stowe. And that is the Liberty Bell that we know today with the crack. This one, this guy right here. A few years after this bell was cast, Alexander Hamilton and Aaron Burr were born. Alexander Hamilton and Aaron Burr competed in one of the most famous duels known to man, where, well, if you know your history, you know how it ends. But the reason I'm telling you this little history lesson is the fact that I read a book last year called Love, Theodosia, which is a love story between the son of Alexander Hamilton and the daughter of Aaron Burr. A Romeo and Juliet retelling. This thing was so much fun because the history in it was on point, and the areas where the author took their liberties, the way she wrote this, it could have really happened. It felt like it could have. Like, this was really a star-crossed lover's story. I have a full book review for it. I'll link it here in the corner in the down box below. I had a great time with this one. This one was so much fun. So much fun. I really, really recommend this one. And I do believe this is her debut novel, Lorianne Goldstein's debut novel. So definitely she knocked it right out of the park with this one, for sure. Had a great fucking time with this. We've got some steam, we got some spice, we got some poetic slams. It's pretty fucking dope, guys. It is. It's, if you like historical fiction with romance, this is more on the historical fiction than it is on the romance side, but the romance is still very, very prevalent within it, and you still feel it and you believe it. You definitely believe it. But it is based off of real historical events, so you already know the ending. But it's the end, it's the fictional ending that you're rooting for. And it's phenomenal. So definitely go check this one out. It's so much fun. Such a good time. Some uses for the ruby. So there's a lot of uses for ruby. You can use them in jewelry. Sometimes they can be knocked down to small pieces to be used in sandpaper as an adjutant, because they are one of the harder stones. But there is one famous use of the ruby. Absolutely. Without a shadow of a doubt. There's no place like home. Those were the words that Dorothy said as she clicked her ruby red slippers to bring her home from Oz. The ruby shoes in that film, that's timeless. They were not made of real rubies. They were made of sequins. And they were used sequins because it showed up on the screen better. Now, there was multiple pairs of sequined ruby red slippers made, and there is one set still remaining in the Smithsonian Institute on display. And me being the shoe person that I am, I saw them. Yeah, that's me. And the shoes. Ha ha! Yes. So obviously my recommendation for a use of the ruby and a book based off of it is L. Frank Baum's The Wizard of Oz. This is the story of Dorothy Gale, who during a tornado finds herself in Oz, and she has to make her way home. She has to go find the wizard, and in that process she encounters a Tin Man, a Cowardly Lion, and a Scarecrow, all looking for something. She's looking for home. The Tin Man wants a heart. The Cowardly Lion needs courage. And the Scarecrow, well, he just wants the brain. But as they go through and trek through, they are hunted down by the Wicked Witch of the West, as Dorothy Gale's house fell on her sister, and she wants the shoes that are now on Dorothy's feet because they are magic. Because who doesn't want to own a pair of ruby red fucking shoes? They can change your world, okay? Dorothy Gale is one of the two main characters in fairy tale literature and literature in general that shoes literally changed her life. One of my idols and one of my favorite books. If you have not read L. Frank Baum's The Wizard of Oz, please go check it out. And if you'd like to delve even more into the Wizard of Oz world, definitely go check out Gregory Maguire's Wicked, which is the story of Elphaba. Elphaba being the name of the Wicked Witch of the West before she became the Wicked Witch of the West. So there are two recommendations for you that are centered around shoes that are rubies. I always wanted a pair of ruby red slippers, and I had a pair growing up, and I have a pair now. I'm just not wearing them because, well, they're my babies, and they stay put, and they don't leave the house. Another use for rubies is that you can find them in lasers or used in watches and clockwork mechanisms. And because of this, I wanted to recommend this book, a book that I read for the Smut Club, and it wasn't the biggest hit with me, but it was kind of fun. It was unique. It was unique for me. We'll say that. And that is In Flight by R.K. Lilly. This is the first installment to the Up in the Air series, where we follow a flight attendant and her billionaire romance hero. Bianca and James Cavendish meet on an airline, and James Cavendish is definitely, well, it's 50 Shades of Grey in the air, guys. That's essentially what this book is, but it does have a lot of similarities to 50 Shades of Grey, but it also does take its own liberties. And it's the Mile High Club, guys. Okay, Mile High Club. Who doesn't want to be part of that club? So if you like BDSM, if you like millionaire romances, if you like workplace romances, if you like mile high romances, here's a start to a trilogy. And Bianca does have definitely a backstory that is one to be reckoned with. And the best friend in this book, Steven, fucking brilliant. He was the best part of this book. I loved him. If you don't read this book for the actual storyline, read it for Steven, because he's fucking great. Straight up. He's a good one. And for my final recommendation for the Ruby, this is my author spotlight. Every single installment has an author spotlight at the very end for an author that was born in that month that has that birthstone. And the author I chose definitely has polarized people. For a long time, she was the it author. She made everybody happy. She brought so many people, including myself, back into the world of reading and back into the world of magic. She made reading magical again for a long time. And in recent events, she has said some things that have rubbed people and infuriated people and hurt some people's feelings. But her work still holds true. And that's why I'm recommending her. I'm not recommending her. I'm recommending her work because her work changed my generation. It changed it. It made reading fun again for a long time. And it's also changed countless generations afterwards with the film adaptations of these books and the spin-off series of this book, and to be soon, a television series based off of these books. And that is J.K. Rowling with Harry fucking Potter. Okay? Say what you want to about J.K. Rowling. I'm recommending the books of Harry Potter because these things are magic. This makes magic real. When someone reads a book, they can get transported and mystified, whether it is a fantasy book. They can fall in love if it's a romance book. They can be scared if it's a horror book. J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter series has a lot of these elements, and she makes every element real. The friend group between Harry, Ron, and Hermione is a friendship to be treasured forever, and for friends that you should look for. Always having each other's backs. These stories had so many lessons for my generation growing up. These will always hold a special place in my heart. And although I did not read these when they came out, I read the first one when it came out, and then I saw the film and they took out my favorite scenes, so I kind of boycotted them until I was older. Reading these as an adult was one of the most special things I could ever think of, and I will always cherish the first time I read these books. I love anytime I read a new book that captivates me and transports me, but I know I'll never get that feeling back, that first time back. I have reread this book 4 times, and it feels like the first time, every time. There is something, it's not just about magic and a school and some kids at a wizarding school. There is actual magic in these books. Because for her to write a book that literally makes me feel like it's the first time every time, it's Harry fucking Potter. All right, it's Harry fucking Potter. It's always gonna hold a place in my heart, no matter what I do, no matter where I read, no matter where I go. This is home. And I still want the prequel fucking series. I want to know how the school got formed. Can I please have that book? Thank you. That's all about that. But that is what I've got recommended for you guys for Ruby. So if you have a July birthday, or you just really like the Stone of Ruby and you pick up any of these, please let me know. Let me know what you think. And I will see you next month for August, which is actually my daughter's birthstone of Peridot. Bye, guys.